Do you go to sleep feeling exhausted, but then lie there for hours with your brain reeling before you finally drift off to sleep, only to awaken just as exhausted as you were the night before? Have you been feeling agitated or even experiencing bouts of crying or moments of frustrated anger? Have you had more headaches or migraines than usual? Tension and tightness in your neck and shoulders? Have you been feeling disconnected from the world and like you have no purpose? Have you been struggling to remember things that you just heard or that you just read? If you've experienced any of these things recently, and a lot of us have, these are just a few signs that we autistics experience as a result of not having sufficient rest. Did you know that there are other forms of rest besides sleep? There are 7 types of rest, and sleep is just one of them. That's the passive physical rest. Today, we'll be learning about the other forms of rest you may not be getting and how to recognize what kind of rest you may need, along with access to a quick quiz to help you evaluate your personal rest needs so that you can be fully restored each day. Be sure to watch the short video linked at the end with tips and how-tos on how gratitude journaling, as this is a great tool to add to your rest and restoration toolbox. Hey, before we get started, I want to share some exciting news with you and a new resource. I've just launched a new podcast called Mind Your Autistic Brain. It's on all the platforms, and there's a link below in the description box. The trailer is out, so go take a quick listen. This show will be sharing the voices and journeys of other late-identified adult autistics, and they will be sharing their insights, experiences, and even some tips they found help them along their autism journey. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the first interview this Wednesday with Diane J. Wright of Autistic. This is such an incredible conversation, and I can't wait to share it with you. So let's get started. I'm not just autistic. I also have ADHD. I know that many of you here today have the same issues. Well, I believe that this combination has led me to burnout so many times over the years because I didn't truly know how to rest. Not the passive physical rest of sleep, but rest in the other aspects that I didn't even know existed until about a year ago. Thanks to my friend Barb, who through her podcast, Better Together, introduced me to Dr. Saundra Dalton-Smith and her book, Sacred Rest. In the show notes below, I have links to this episode so you can listen to Dr. Dalton-Smith in her words, and I've also included a link to a very insightful episode Barb did entitled, We Are Blessed When We Rest. If you are a Christian and seeking deeper spiritual rest, this is a wonderful teaching on rest from a biblical perspective. If you're a non-Christian, spiritual rest can come in other forms, and I've included a link below for you as well. Everyone comes to a place of spirituality in their own way and in their own time. As autistics, we often experience spiritual and religious hurts. These hurts are sometimes pretty deep, and because of that, I know that the spiritual aspect of our humanity gets shut off for our own self-protection. And that's okay. That sometimes is part of our journey. But it also has to be part of our healing. If that's something that you've experienced and you're in a place where you're ready to begin healing those past hurts, my dear friend Rebecca, who's also autistic, has a wonderful group just for this purpose. And there's a link below to that group. It's called The Healing Place. So rest comes in several different forms, which are physical, emotional, social, mental, sensory, spiritual, and creative. Some of these may sound familiar and you're like, okay, I can see how that's a form of rest. Well, let's talk a little bit about each one of those just very quickly. So physical rest, there's 2 forms of it. There's passive and there's active. In the passive form of rest, that would be like a sleep or nap, and that's normally what we associate with rest when we hear the word. I'd like you to look at rest as a bigger part. Let's think of it as restoration, restoring those things that we need. That's also refueling. But there's an active part, an active physical rest, something such as taking a nature walk, exercise. And we've actually talked about exercise in an earlier video when we were talking about the different aspects of our energy and how to fuel it. And I'll link to that video up above. Oh, and by the way, I know I'm a little hesitant to click on things. So I'll have an info card up at the top and it'll have a little eye and it'll pop up when I mention something. It's totally okay to click on it. I was scared to click on something when I saw that in a video one time because I thought it was going to take me off the video. But if you click on it, it will actually just populate the video off to the side. So at the end, you can click on it and watch it. So if it's something you're interested in and an info card pops up, go ahead and click on it and it'll just put it off to the side and you can watch it at the end. So don't worry. I worried and I was scared to click on it. And finally, I'm like, this is silly. I'm going to find out what it does. So give it a try. All right, so let's get back to it. Let's talk about it. The next one is emotional. So this is where we're able to be our authentic selves, not a masked version. This can be an ongoing kind of stress that drains us. This one we're pretty aware of as autistics. Then there's the social. This form of rest is when we can spend time with those people who pour energy back into us. It's necessary to define those who drain us. And just because someone drains our energy, it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It doesn't mean that they're out to harm us in any way. Sometimes those people that drain us, they're the people that we love the dearest and who are the most important to us, like our kids. It isn't about removing them from our life. It's about learning how to balance the time we spend with them and how we re-energize ourselves and stay rested in the balance between times. When my kids were really young, this was a big struggle for me. And it's something that I think we all struggle with as parents. So if you've got young children, they can be draining. And you've got to learn how to re-energize and refuel yourself and find that balance. Then there's mental rest. Netflix, it's great. And we all enjoy surfing Facebook on our phones, right? And they can provide mental rest, but they can also add to our mental exhaustion. Finding mental rest where you spend quiet time, being quiet and still, is an energizing form of mental rest. Yeah, you can Netflix and chill on the couch, and to a certain extent, if done correctly, yes, that can be rest. But then there's other times where if it's constantly looping and you're watching the next autoplay episode, there's some serious science research into showing how if we do that and we spend too long watching something and having something in front of us that we're sort of mindlessly watching, that those emotions in that show that we're watching can actually affect us and we start to take on those emotions ourselves. So you also have to be guarded about what you're watching, not just how much you're watching. Okay, here's the next big one, sensory rest. As autistics, we have sensory issues. I mean, I can tell you about clothing all day long. If it feels weird, if it's itchy, if it's a weird material, I'm not wearing it, and it will just aggravate me if I have something that's touching me that I don't like the way it feels. And sensory exhaustion is huge in our world. And we often don't recognize just how bad it's built up because it's so layered and it's so thick throughout our day, such as the noise of the ceiling fan, the hum of a light, the television in the other room, the texture of the sofa, or just the sound of our own heartbeat in our ears. When our power went off the other day, I didn't really notice it right at first, but all of a sudden it was like my shoulders dropped, and I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, it's finally quiet. It's finally peaceful. And it was like I could almost take this deep breath. And we don't realize how stressed and exhausted those sensory elements have become until we get a little peace and quiet from those sensory issues and get a break from them. And then when there's spiritual rest, as humans, we seek understanding of our existence outside of ourselves. Some of us connect with and find this through religion or God. Others find this through existentialism or philosophy. I'm a Christian, and I find this spiritual rest in prayer and through a relationship with God. I know that not everyone believes this, but I do encourage you to seek out and find a place of spiritual rest for yourself. This is a part of the 4 foundational bedrocks that bring us into full balance. And next week, we're going to talk about these 4 foundational bedrocks. that are our core components. The last is creative rest. This brings to mind drawing, painting, music, and this is just a small part of creative rest and restoration. Finding and seeing the world around us and appreciating its beauty can come in many forms, such as math. There is beauty in numbers, and I'm a data girl. Finding avenues of self-expression that reflect our inner artist can be writing or journaling, not just painting or jewelry making. Barb asked Dr. Dalton Smith a great question. How do we know when we are rested? Her response was really clear. She asked, what improved afterward? Was there restoration of energy? Were your muscles relaxed? Do you feel more creative? That was a pretty good answer. It was pretty clear. I liked that. If we do something to target one of those areas of rest and we don't feel like something has improved, then that's a good indicator that we haven't gotten rest, right? I've included a few articles for you in the description box below on rest, a link for the Healing Place group, links for both Christian and non-Christian spiritual rest, and be sure to check out the link to listen to the trailer for my new podcast premiering next Wednesday, Mind Your Autistic Brain. Click on the link below in the description to take the rest quiz to find out what kind of rest you need and what kind you are currently getting. I'm including a resource for a pre-sleep routine to help you get to sleep and get better quality sleep to restore your brain and your body below as well. There are several things that you can do to help prepare yourself for better sleep. I loved this article because it gives you about 15 different steps and different things that you can do to help improve your quality of sleep at night. Be sure to watch the short video link at the end with tips and how-tos on gratitude journaling, as this is a great tool in your restoration toolbox. So be sure to click on that one at the end. Our question for today is, what kind of rest did the quiz show you that you need? Have a great day. This week, we're going to rest. See you next week.